I love a good beatdown. And if you clicked on this video, my guess is that you do too. So come chill with me as I recommend to you some of my favorite martial arts manga that are worth a read to any fan. First up is Jungkook Jin's The Breaker series. Breaker starts off with our series protagonist, Shi-Woon Lee, witnessing a man in the street beating the dust off of a couple of goons in broad daylight. Shi-Woon himself is constantly bullied at school, so believing he has finally found the answer to his prayers, he asks the stranger to teach him how to throw hands so he can protect himself and be the version of himself that he's always wanted to be. As any normal human being would, the man denies the kid's request and continues about his day. But as luck would have it, or fate maybe, Shi-Woon sees the man again, this time at school claiming to be his class's new English teacher. The man, introducing himself as Chun Woo-han, is, as you may have guessed, no ordinary English teacher. He's actually an unparalleled master of 9 different martial arts and is known in the underworld as the 9-Door Dragon. Han and Lee's fated meeting sets the stage for the Breaker's journey into the perilous world of the criminal underworld known as the Murin, and Lee's growth into a capable and deadly martial artist. What I love about the Breakers is this mixture of grounded martial arts science and techniques with over-the-top and devastating ki usage. It's a crazy, interesting blend of stuff that makes you think, yeah, I could actually see someone realistically knowing how to defend themselves like this in one moment, and then in the next scene they stop their opponent's blood flow with a chi-infused uppercut they learned from their late master's forbidden scrolls he left in the monastery temple, never to be seen or heard from again. Also a major standout in the Breaker is the art. Good lord, is this series beautiful to look at. Not only does it have iconic and appealing character designs for both the men and the women of the cast, but it absolutely oozes style. Much respect to the artist's use of shading and shot composition to create varying atmosphere from scene to scene. The Breaker knows how to make a full-page layout of only a man staring forward in his chair seem like one of the most terrifying moments ever. And that, my friends, takes talent. The Breaker is a fantastic introduction to manga for shonen fans and fans of martial arts, and for those interested in learning more, I have a more in-depth review of the series already up on the channel. Next, let's talk about one of my favorite manga of all time, Holy Land. Holy Land was created by Koji Mori, who many of you may now recognize as the man who has taken over the Berserk series following the tragic passing of Kentaro Miura-san. Many had worries about someone new taking over the reins of Berserk, but after hearing who was going to be stepping into those shoes, I breathed a major sigh of relief because I knew the story was in good hands after reading Mori's manga, Holy Land. Holy Land is a seinen martial arts series telling the story of Kamoshiro Yu, a high school boy whom is relentlessly bullied up till he reaches his breaking point. Right before he commits the act, he has a sudden flash of extreme terror and decides not to go through with things. Yu decides that if he's going to remain alive, he might as well learn how to make getting bullied and beat up at school hurt less, so he picks up a boxing textbook and starts learning the basics. To his significant surprise, Yu finds himself completely engrossed in learning boxing techniques and strengthening his body, and this begins Yu's journey of not only self-discovery, but learning to interact and understand others as well. I absolutely adore Holy Land for so many reasons. One of the things that really makes the series stand out is Koji Mori's real-life experience with martial arts. Holy Land is littered with real-life tips and explanations about the physiology and fight science of boxing. Those looking for a more grounded martial arts series with a significant level of realism compared to the standard shonen fare will find themselves right at home with Holy Land. But what really sets Holy Land apart for me is the incredibly entertaining fights interwoven together with a narrative and valuable life lessons that I absolutely fell in love with. Not only did I relate with Kamoshiro's weakness and desire to grow, but Mori's outlook on life and the absolute truth bombshells that he drops at times in the series will leave you thinking long after you've closed the pages on the story. Those looking for a grounded story with a basis in real-life martial arts training and techniques will not be disappointed. And for those wishing to know more, I have a video diving more heavily into this series as well. Have you ever just met someone that seemed like they had everything while you yourself have been struggling seemingly your whole life, and you just want to knock that stupid smile they have off their face? Then oh boy, are you gonna like Red Blue. Red Blue tells the story of 2 high school boys who grew up together, but as they grew older, their lives veered in seemingly 2 completely opposite directions. Alba is a quiet, sickly young boy whom feels as though he's completely plain, living in the shadows and sadly being quickly forgotten by nearly everyone whom he's ever met. Kenshin, on the other hand, is loud, aggressive, and in recent years has become one of the mixed martial arts' fastest rising stars. Women love him, men want to be him, and worst of all, he's extremely nice and willing to help anyone who needs it, and Alba hates him for it. One day, Kenshin sees Alba getting attacked by bullies. Kenshin steps in and pieces up the dude giving Alba trouble, even extending his hand to Alba in a show of support. But instead of taking Kenshin's hand and thanking him for what he did, Alba acts on impulse and attempts to sock Kenshin in the face. Kenshin instinctively dodges and knocks Alba on his ass. Kenshin then asks Alba why he did that, and Alba simply responds that he just can't stand him. This is the moment that kicks off the story. Following this, Alba finds his bully and asks him to help him train so he can body Kenshin and knock that grin off his face, even if just for a moment. Red Blue hooked me immediately with its unconventional setup and the relatability of the main character. character. What fight fans are going to love in Red Blue is the depictions of MMA. Much like Holy Land with boxing, Red Blue is chock full of real-life MMA concepts and techniques, and the fights so far have been grounded in a level of realism that you aren't going to find in many manga. Fans of MMA should do themselves a favor and check out Red Blue, and for those who want to know more, I have a video on this series on the channel as well. Next, I gotta show some love to Jung Ji-hoon's series, The Boxer. This is a manhwa that came out of nowhere for me, but I'm glad I got put onto it because it's been fantastic so far. The Boxer tells the story of Yu, whom by many is considered exceedingly strange. Yu has nearly superhuman athletic abilities, but has absolutely no drive to compete or vie for superiority like majority of humans on the planet. Yu lives a life without any joy or purpose, and is a mystery to anyone who comes across him. One day, the legendary Coach K sees Yu's athletic prowess on display and works to convince Yu to become box. This introduction to the world of boxing sets the stage for Yu's story and the search for purpose in a world that has yet to provide him one. What I love about The Boxer is its great characters and the exploration of significant philosophical themes through the challenges experienced by each of them in the story. The Boxer does an excellent job of making you ask yourself why about a great number of things, and makes you think about things that may potentially have never even come across your mind. It also makes excellent use of visual metaphor, making each fight feel dangerous, unique, and entertaining in its own way. The Boxer is one I have my eye on, and I'm excited to see where the story goes as I continue working my way through it. Finally, we have to talk about Shamo. I'll keep it a buck with all of you, this one is not going to be for everyone. Shamo's narrative is dark as hell, and it tackles some topics that many probably won't be comfortable with. But if you're able to handle the themes it explores, you'll find one of the most unique and underrated martial arts stories around. The story starts with our protagonist, or maybe I should say anti-hero, Ryo, being sent to one of the most dangerous juvenile detention centers in Japan following a heinous crime that he committed, which I won't spoil here. Upon arriving at the detention center, his first night he's taken advantage of and assaulted by a group of inmates, leaving him a terrified and broken mess. Every day is hell for Ryo in this prison until one day he's given the chance to take a martial arts class being offered by a strange man who comes to the facility periodically. Having nothing better to do and nothing to lose, Ryo goes to these instructions, never missing a lesson. He then finds himself practicing the techniques when he is alone, and as a result has begun to pull on some muscle mass as well. The brand of karate the instructor teaches is not sports karate, but what he considers pure karate. Type of karate used in self-defense that is a killing art when practiced in the right hands. The story begins to kick off when Ryo becomes proficient in the killing techniques he learned from his sensei and begins to use his karate to take vengeance on those who have wronged him in the past. This is just a brief synopsis of some of the earliest moments in the story. Much more begins to happen after this point. I mess with Shamo heavy. I am a fan of stories with a darker atmosphere and subject matter, and Shamo is not afraid to dive into this territory at all. It's also not afraid to let the reader hate the main character. I have found few story protagonists as messed up as Ryo is, and I don't mean this as a negative whatsoever. Ryo is a complex character who cannot be defined by simple labels of black and white morality. Some of the acts Ryo commits in the story are downright evil and unforgivable, and people's mileage is going to vary on how much they can handle putting up with when it comes to Ryo and the direction the story takes at times. But what will attract fight fans to this one is the story's realism. Shamo is heavily grounded in the real world, and fights have a weight and grittiness to them that few stories can match. What I will say though is that if you do read this, please know the story goes completely off the rails for a bit in one of the arcs and becomes kind of goofy, but this kind of gets retconned later, so it's hard to really know what to make of it. Regardless of its flaws though, Shamo is a favorite of mine, and there are criminally few videos online talking about how good this series is. Same as with the previous videos I mentioned, if you want to hear more in-depth analysis, I have one up on the channel for Shamo as well. And there you have it, homies, 5 recommendations for fighting martial arts series I believe to be extremely underrated. Let me know if you already messed with any of the stories I mentioned here, or if you're going to check any out after coming across this video. Now thank you all for your time, and I'll talk to you again in the next video.